Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video, and today we're going to be looking at the state of Alaska, and before we get started I just want to mention that there was an old one up that you might have seen, and I did delete that one. I realized after posting it to Premiere, there was an editing mistake. A text message came up on my screen that was personal. It wouldn't let me edit it out, so I figured that I would actually refilm the video, and I hope this one's will be higher quality because when you film a video this for the third time, because that was my second take that I actually posted, it usually, hopefully it'll be better. So for those of you who follow me on Twitter, you might have already seen this. I literally just tweeted this 4:52 p.m. My time. So I just thought I would clarify that. So yeah. That's all I have to say. But before we get started, I think we should just take a brief review of Alaska geography now. This is going to be a review for most of you. But we should just take a look at the three largest cities in Alaska, which are Anchorage, which is down here. It has 200,000 people, as you can see. It's a pretty nice area. Let's mess around and see a random house or something. And if you've ever been to this street and you recognize that, you have to subscribe. That's Anchorage. The second largest city, I believe, is Fairbanks, which is up here or something. Right, yeah, Fairbanks right here, around 50,000 people, and then the third largest city in the capital, Juneau, which is down somewhere around here, I think. Juneau is like around here or something, if I can find it, but Juneau is somewhere around this area. Yeah, so that's essentially it, and then there is, of course, the rural north, which basically no cities over here. Like, you literally can't even do street view for basically all of it, except for like a few random areas. Whoops, I did not want to go there, but cool. Rural. Anyways, that's essentially it. Just thought I'd mess around with Google Maps for a second. But now we should be taking a look at the state of Alaska and why the Democratic Party is really, to be completely honest with you, they have a future here, and more so than in other swing states that we've talked about. I think that it's reasonable to think that Alaska could flip back to the Democrats before Florida does. Now, the last time the Democrat won Alaska, I believe, was 1964. LB at the presidential level when LBG had his landslide. So Alaska's been a red state for a while. And in 2000, it was, just to take a look at recent elections in 2000, it was terrible for the Democrats. I mean, Al Gore only won one county, and he got 27% of the vote there. This was due partially to a big third-party presence by Ralph Nader, but still, either way, a big Bush victory. He won it again in 2004 by a little less. Kerry actually won a few counties. Kerry carried a few counties, actually. Unlike Gore, he did a little better. We still lost it by 25. And then 2008, it narrows up considerably, but Obama still loses it. He loses it by 22. Then 2012, it actually narrows up again. This is one of the few states that Obama did better in 2012 and 2008, which is probably because Sarah Palin was the governor of Alaska, was John McCain's running mate. So, yeah, 2012, it narrowed up again for Obama. He lost it by 14. And then 2016, it's a 15-point Trump victory, but he only gets 51% of the vote. This is mostly because Gary Johnson took away a couple thousand votes from Trump. And we're kind of taking a look at what Alaska politics looks like now. We have the rural north blue, and especially the west is the bluest part of the state. And then Anchorage is more Republican. Same with Fairbanks. Juneau is more Democratic. The area that kind of surrounds Juneau, and then the red. And I'll say this a lot: the reddest part of the state is the Anchorage exurbs. So yeah, and then 2020, Biden comes in and he makes it a 10-point Trump state. He didn't win it obviously, but he performed fairly well there. And I think that Democrats had nothing to be ashamed of regarding their performance in the state of Alaska in 2020. Biden actually outperformed expectations. I think he had him losing it by 11. And he lost it by 10. So, he did about as well as I thought he did, but he did a little better, I guess, than I thought. But either way, Alaska, Biden narrowed it up. And it was closer than, it had been historically. So Alaska definitely stayed this trend to the left. And, why is this? Well, first of all, let's talk about the Alaskan electorate. So I guess I'll just pull up. So we should pull up. Actually, no, I won't do that. But let's take a look at the 2020 election results in Alaska. So Donald Trump obviously won Alaska, but what are the demographics that are key in Alaska? So first of all, we have the big cities, which are majority white for the most part, and these white voters, especially in Anchorage and Juneau, Fairbanks, I believe to a certain extent as well. But talking with Anchorage, just to talk about the largest city that's most important. Anchorage is a city where it's not very native. Like, the native Alaskans are Democratic voters because they're more Native American. But Anchorage is mostly inhabited by white, people who are in the oil industry, and the Republican Party is perceived to be the more oil-friendly party by these voters, and they come out for the Republican Party, and they've been doing so for the past several decades. Now that's changing. Things are changing, and these voters are kind of, your average oil-focused voter who votes for Republicans in Anchorage is essentially, they are voters who are very libertarian in that, for example, they don't think that the government should regulate the oil industry, which is a platform of the Democratic Party that they don't like, and that's what they vote on. But they can be more socially liberal. They maybe are in favor of legalizing gay marriage, which is the Republican Party certainly does not support gay marriage. Maybe they are pro LGBTQ rights, right, etc. And they might be pro-gun and pro-oil, and they're voting on that, but they're slowly shifting away from Republicans, the way that suburban voters who are still fiscally conservative. I don't know why I sounded weird for a second, like conservative with a C, it's with an S. These that are still fiscally conservative are shifting to the left because the Republican Party has gone so conservative on social issues, and because they feel alienated by Trump. And we see it, and we're seeing a similar thing happening in areas like Anchorage, where we have white voters who are more libertarian, who just were turned off by Trump. And I think that's going to cost the GOP in the future. And I think that's a big part of why Alaska's trending to the left. Now, it's not only Trump. It's not a Trump thing. In fact, Trump actually did pretty well for a Republican with Native Americans up north, which is why he narrowed up. If we can take a look at the shift, actually, North Slope, which is electoral district 40, I believe, on this map. Electoral district 40 narrowed up, it narrowed up, and it swung 14 points to the right in 2020. This was a Clinton district in 2016 that Donald Trump ended up only losing by 7 in 2020. And Clinton won it by 21 or 22. Biden only won it by 7. So Trump narrowed it up there. But this doesn't really matter because it's a pretty small area. It's in terms of land, it's pretty big. But as you can see, the winner only got 2,000 votes, whereas some random precinct or area in Anchorage, these smaller districts, like I guess counties, you could say, they're averaging 5,000 a pop. And in terms of actual counties, like if we look at counties or something, I wish there was a way to do it by county. There isn't, though, which is annoying. But there's not. But essentially, the point I'm trying to make here is that the areas in Anchorage are more important than a random swing up north. And that was kind of to give Trump credit. He wasn't a great candidate for Alaska. I think that if the Republicans ran a more libertarian candidate, they would have done better in Alaska. But anyways, I think I don't want to talk about Trump this video because I want to talk about the future in Alaska. And Trump, I don't think it's the future of the GOP. His ideology might be, but I don't think he himself is. Now, let's take a look at the election shuffler, which I think is a really cool tool. Actually, we should look at, just for a model, the 2014 governor election in Alaska. So as you can see, the independent was basically a Democrat, by the way. Bill Walker, basically a Democrat. So anyways, the Bill Walker, the independent candidate, he did very well in the rural part of the state, which is what Democrats, Alaska's weird in that the rurals are more Democratic because they're a minority population, Native Americans, and they vote Democrat. But, as you can see, Anchorage and its exurbs were more Republican. So, like I said, the most Republican part of Alaska are the Anchorage exurbs kind of over here. And other than that, Democrats have the ability to win. So let's take a look at Alaska and just see the 2020 election results. So first of all, and let's just make a winning map for Democrats. First of all, they're calling it Arctic. I don't even know why. But, this northern part, Democrats have to do better. Clinton won it by 21 or something. Let's give the Democrats a 17-point win there. It's already narrowing up to a 10-point Democratic victory. Biden did pretty poorly with Native Americans in Alaska for a Democrat for whatever reason. I'm not going to make a diagnosis for that, but they just have to do better in these regions. I think that maybe it's a little generous. We'll do like a 10-point margin of victory here. All right. So that's down to 10.2, and I adjusted the shifts to the Democrats in a few counties. These counties don't matter. They have to start, narrowing it up a little bit in these areas, these more rural white areas. They can do that, but I don't think it's a key part of their goal. Now, this is Fairbanks right here, as you can see. And now, this is possibly me just being anecdotal, but Fairbanks, to me, by a friend of mine who's Alaskan, was once described as a city full of people who don't want to live in a city. And that makes sense to a certain extent because Fairbanks is kind of in the middle of nowhere, but it's still a pretty large city for the state. And I think it's important to remember this because these voters are, again, more libertarian. So I think that if Democrats have better libertarian appeal, they can do better in Fairbanks, which is why I think that in the future they're going to do better here. And I think that they can flip this downtown Fairbanks precinct or county or whatever this is. So I'll just give it to them narrowly. And by the way, and they just start running it up better here in Fairbanks in these areas that are even more Democratic. They just have to do better there. So yeah, and then in these areas that are trending to the left, I just think that the Democrats are gonna have to do better there. As I mentioned earlier, let's take a look at the shift on Fairbanks in these areas. They're shifting. Trump still got 72% of the vote here, but they're still shifting to the left. So the Democrats don't have to flip them, but they still have to do some narrowing up. So Fairbanks we've done, but the Democrats are still 9 points down. First of all, these Anchorage exurbs, the Democrats have to narrow it up there. They don't have to win them. They don't have to come close to winning them, but they just have to narrow it up a little bit. And they just have to do that. So just edit these, and I'll just multi-select because I forgot to do that in the previous video, and I got a lot of heat for that, which is understandable because it is probably let's do something like D+4. So yeah, shift select the counties. Yeah, there we go. So now it's down to a 7-point lead for the GOP in Alaska. Now, here's where it comes in. Here's where we need to talk about Fairbanks. If I can zoom in without this going crazy on my mouse. First of all, Elmendorf. I'm not going to pretend like I know what that is. I wish I could give you a diagnosis of what it is, but to me, it looks like suburban Democratic trending area. So the Democrats have to flip that, and then to flip these areas, they have to keep running it up in the actual places that they're good at running it up in the city. We will continue to adjust this. We should just actually multi-select the parts of the city that, whoops, I did not want to do that. Oops, we're not going to select that. I think we already did that. So yeah, and then shift these around 3 points to the left. And with that, it is now down to a 6.46% margin of victory for the GOP. And now this is where the Democrats can really improve. In these areas, they have to flip all these areas, first of all. That are in Anchorage. There has to be essentially no red left in downtown Anchorage, and that's where the Democrats are getting killed in Alaska right now because they don't know how to run it up in Anchorage. And as soon as they start doing better with these voters, it's going to flip back to them, and it'll be a huge swing. So yeah, whoops. I wish I was better with this tool. They just have to do a little better in some of these regions outside of Anchorage. Like this is kind of exurban, not really to a certain extent. And then Juneau, which is pretty blue. They just have to start downtown Juneau, Douglas, Haines, Skagwa. Probably not the full name. They just have to keep doing better in Juneau and in Skagwa, whatever that is called, and continue to run it up in Anchorage. And and they're not going to get a victory. They have to flip these areas. I'm sorry, but they have to flip these areas. So now it's down to a 3.5% GOP win. So what can we do? Because we've kind of done the shifts that are going to happen potentially in a best case scenario for Democrats until 2024, which is why I don't think that Alaska's going to flip in 2024. But let's say in 2028. First of all, I think that they can start again continuing their shifts in Fairbanks. They can continue their shifts in these more exurban parts of Fairbanks that are again like even the exurbs are shifting to the left. Which is, again, great news for Democrats. Whoops. And then I think, again, it comes down to Anchorage. And exurban Anchorage can narrow up again, as I mentioned. Let's get it to the 30s. And, the Democrats just want to highlight this. They're only down 8,000 votes right now, and they only lost by 36,000 in 2020. Alaska's a small state, and it's pretty cheap to, you can invest in Alaska, and it's pretty cheap for the Democrats. It's kind of a hanging, the low hanging fruit, I guess, in that it has 2 Senate seats because the Senate's messed up. It doesn't really have a ton of electoral value, but since it has the 2 Senate seats, they can really start to campaign here because they only have to get higher turnout from their people, and that's essentially what they can do to flip the states. So I think at this point I should just start messing around with Anchorage and shift them each to the left, and I think that should do it right here. The Republicans up, and the Democrats just flipped it. They're ahead by only 500 votes, so we're just going to give them better margins. I think we can give them a better than Clinton margin in Arctic, and I think that will probably make it up. So I think that's essentially all the Democrats have to do in Alaska, and I know I did a lot of clicking. I need to do I need to be better at that. And I want to do for future videos when I use this tool, now that I've learned that this takes longer than it looks, is I'll do the clicking first and I'll show you the shift, like, as you can see the shift. So, yeah, and that's essentially it for this video, I think. So, Democrats, once they start doing better, and they already are, and I've said once they start, they already are. When they continue and when the shifts come into effect, they can definitely win Alaska, and that's why I think Alaska is going to be a swing state in the future. And I think that we're already seeing the earlier stages of it being a swing state, and especially if 2022 Senate race could get messy if a right-wing challenger jumps in against Lisa Murkowski and some random Democrat. So you never know. But that's it for this video. I'll see you all next one. Goodbye.